Episode 11, Clip 3, Executive Order. Reducing drug costs, reckless government spending, renting Caesars Palace and stadiums for government parties. Nanci Pelosi makes almost $5 million in a day, and an adorable raccoon that may need rehab.
There's a tremendous number of people who, older people, fixed income, they're literally cutting out food and other necessities to be able to afford their medication. And I would argue that it's true that it's not a want, but it's not exactly the way you described it either, because much like I described the scenario with type 2 diabetes, where an inordinate amount of patients are put perpetually on an ever increasing amount of insulin, when the medical team should be working on getting them off the insulin as soon as possible and titrating them off of that. Same thing with cholesterol-lowering medications that are often not indicated and don't provide the benefit that the patient's led to believe that it'll provide, and on and on. And there's so many things that patients are told, oh, well, you have to take this medication because we don't know what causes it, but just be on this medication for life, when there are things that we've now discovered are reversible. So there is certainly this sort of impression that medications will solve everything, when very often they just lead to more side effects and are more of a band-aid for many things than a permanent solution. And there's a pharmacy based in the Fort Worth area in Texas that they post, it's called Forest Park Pharmacy, and they post a lot of terrific content. I want to put a quick piece up because they explain how and why this executive order is so important.
Here we go. The Trump prescription drug price executive order is out, and there is one key element that could make this whole thing work. So the purpose is to bring our prices down to match the rest of the world. They plan to do this by forcing drug manufacturers to sell to Americans at the most favored nation's price. However, buried in the middle is the really big deal. They want to enable direct-to-consumer most favored nation pricing. That is where the solution lies. The reason our prices are so high is because we have given a middleman, the pharmacy benefits managers, exclusive rights to negotiate rebates for drug sales. That means they're the only ones that can access brand name drugs at reasonable prices. For example, I can sell generic medications extremely cheap because they're cheap to buy. But brand name drugs are extremely expensive because the PBMs want higher prices so that they can get bigger rebates because they get a percentage of the rebates. If we cut the middleman and allow the consumer to access the lowest price instead of just the middleman, we've solved 90% of the problem.
Totally true. Absolutely, positively. And this gentleman is always explaining how he can't compete because of these middlemen that are situated and have priority over doing the right thing, essentially. And I think that's going to massively change. That being said, does it surprise you that any government agency or anything that's being led by the government might be inefficient or perhaps not straightforward? Would that even surprise you?
It's the definition of government-led.
It is. Tell me what you think about this next clip.
Let's take a look.
A little over $40 billion was supplied in support through the Loan Program Office in its 15 years of existence, a little over $40 billion, and then almost $100 billion in the 76 days after they lost the election and before President Trump's inauguration. If those were great ideas that were benefit to the America, why didn't they do it in the 2.5 years after the Inflation Reduction Act was passed? Why did they wait till they lost the election? They changed terms and loan covenants. They basically tried to set bombs to make it hard for us to unwind the mess they'd created. That's just not a responsible way to treat American taxpayer money and to move our energy system forward. So yes, we've stepped into a lot of mess, but this stuff's all fixable. We've got an aggressive team going after it. And you see already American energy prices are down. Investments in America to bring jobs back are up. So I think we're going the right direction, but yeah, we've got a lot to clean out.
$1.3 billion a day.
It's crazy. Yeah,
going to NGOs.
during one of the first episodes, we put on another O'Keefe video of a guest who was saying that they were throwing gold bars off the Titanic nonstop towards the end of the Biden administration on any cause that could possibly be conceivable of somewhat of an interesting cause to the Democratic Party. They would literally just get bars of gold. Not really, it was usually money, but just vast sums of wealth, vast redistribution of wealth. And it's redistribution by the government, which will always be the least efficient redistribution, the least effective redistribution as well. Yeah, I think Doge is doing remarkable work in discovering this.
Yeah, what's the other thing that they discovered recently about not earmarking what the money was actually for?
Yeah, who needs to know? Let's just send out trillions of dollars without ever contemplating where it goes or what it is.
Here's another clip. Watch this one.
Sure. So actually, a lot of great work at the Treasury this week. One of the crazy things with regards to the Treasury is that when a payment is made, and the computers at the Treasury actually pay about $5 trillion per year, like crazy amounts, there was formerly not a budget code on there. So if a payment was made, you didn't know actually what it was for. It could have been for anything. Yeah. There was a $4 billion COVID fund in the Department of Education, and there was no receipts required, so people could just draw down on it. And when people looked into it, this wasn't us, this was before us, they found that money was being used to rent out Caesar's Palace for parties, rent out stadiums, etc. And so the one change that Doge made with the Department of Education is we had the simple requirement that if you draw down money, you must first upload a receipt. That was the only change that was made. You must upload your receipt. And upon doing so,
Yes.
nobody drew down any money anymore.
Yes, but we didn't say that we'd check the receipt. You could send a fake receipt. You could send a picture of your dog. But as soon as we asked for anything at all, suddenly the requests were like, oh, we don't need it anymore. Huh, that's interesting.
They were renting Caesar's Palace.
Yes, they were like basically partying on the taxpayer money.
Stadiums.
Yes, leasing stadiums
For what?
for parties, basically.
For parties.
Yes,
That's a big party.
it's a big party.
You'd think if you were stealing, you'd start small.
They do start small, but then what happens is over the years, so generally the fraud starts out small and they try to hide it. But then year after year, if nobody stops the fraud, it gets more and more brazen. And every year it gets bigger until they're literally renting out stadiums. What's
that, $1 million to rent out a stadium?
Fraud in flagrante delicto, okay?
That was Jesse Waters from Fox and Jesse Waters Primetime with speaking with Elon Musk at the end. Could you even believe that? Like stadium? We weren't invited. What was going on over there? That's insane. That's freaking insane. I'm sorry. Again, that's the whole thing. Our healthcare system is no different than that. That's just the reality. And do you think the politicians are totally innocent in all this? Do you think they all have no clue? Do you think well, we don't know what's going on. Do you think that's possible, or do you think they might at least have an inkling that some of this is happening? Do you think some of them might have actually made it to these stadiums when they were rented out? We did talk on a prior episode about how well our elected officials do in the stock market. It seems like they're outperforming Warren Buffett and everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I'm not sure if they go to the stadium, and even if they'd have an investment discussion, probably wouldn't help.
We should have gone into politics. Here's another reason why we should have become politicians.
The Democrats don't have high ground, okay? Some of the most profitable portfolios in Congress, some of the traders making the most money are Democrats. And near the top of that list, if not at it, is Nanci Pelosi. She made tens of millions of dollars during her time as speaker in the stock market. And she's not done. A new report by Quiver Quantitative, use it. See how they're trading. Copy their trades if you want to make money, okay? Quiver Quantitative tracks all members of Congress. She made nearly $5 million in one day of trading. 26 times her congressional salary one day.
That was Chris Cuomo. I mean, oh my goodness.
And we discussed this in the past. It's basically insider trading, which is illegal. and is enforced against others, but not against politicians. And this has been going on for a very long time, and it's very sad. And hopefully these issues start getting fixed, because it's not very sustainable throwing gold bars off of the Titanic.
You can only throw them till there isn't any more, and I think that's the problem. Our country was starting to run out. That's really the challenge. But I guess it's not the only.
Point.
It's not just in our country; it's in other countries too. You have politicians who sometimes, at least, are a little more honest and tell you the way it is. We have a clip here where they're being pretty honest. What do you think?
Corruption is not bad. Corruption is only bad if I'm not involved. Yes. But if I'm part of that corruption, I'll defend it.
At least,
Hey, you're not supposed to say the quiet part out loud, man.
yeah,
Keep
yeah.
the secret.
Hey, you might as well be proud, right? You might as well be proud. It's all good. We need that level of honesty in our country. I don't know. Maybe all these politicians, after they retire, they can form some sort of investment club or start doing lectures on how to invest your money in retirement. They have a second career.
And they can become YouTubers.
That's true. That's absolutely true. Why not? Listen, all that being said, listen, life isn't easy, even for a raccoon. That's what I say.
Yeah, I think it's time for the happy endings.
Yeah, it's time for us to. You're actually looking sleepy there. I don't know. It's been a long day, right?
It definitely has.
Yeah, for me as well, but it's all good. Ultimately, we always try to end off with at least something that's certainly out of the usual, out of the ordinary, somewhat amusing, although we've, I think, added a few things that are at least a little amusing. We know that laughter is the best medicine, and it actually is the least expensive as well.
True.
This clip out of Ohio for a traffic stop, and the police officer certainly has a surprise. Let's watch on.
2 minutes, I'm right across from my house.
A
few minutes?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is what she's smoking meth in.
Okay,
The raccoon's playing with her meth pipe.
all right.
Oh, there's no way.
See you when
He's
you
trying
get
to
here.
smoke it.
All right. Thanks.
There's no way. All right, enough fun and games.
Here.
Oh,
Yeah, he's on his way.
keep an eye. She was trying to take the meth pipe out of the car. Just keep an eye on her real quick.
Not tough enough being a raccoon, but a raccoon with a meth problem. I'm sorry. We got to fix this country.
The raccoon didn't seem bothered whatsoever by the cop's hand going in and grabbing things. He was just trying to smoke the meth.
Be sure to watch our other clips and shorts and the entire episode 11 of The YoJo Show.